In global economics, few tools are as powerful or as hotly debated as the tariff. Tariffs have shaped the way nations interact, compete, and even cooperate on the world stage. These taxes on imports spark passionate arguments, not just among politicians and economists, but also among everyday people whose jobs and wallets are affected. At its core, a tariff is a tax on imported goods, making foreign products more expensive for American consumers. This can mean higher prices at the checkout counter for everything from electronics to clothing. The idea is to give domestic industries a price advantage, encouraging people to buy American. Supporters argue this helps protect jobs and keeps vital industries strong. But tariffs are more than just taxes. They're instruments of economic strategy and foreign policy. Governments use them to send messages, reward allies, or punish rivals. For centuries, governments have used tariffs to protect local industries, nurture new businesses, and shape the direction of their economies. Tariffs also serve as leverage in international negotiations, giving countries bargaining chips when striking trade deals. However, tariffs can also trigger trade wars, disrupting global supply chains and creating economic uncertainty for businesses and consumers alike. The ripple effects can be felt worldwide. In the US, debates over tariffs have shaped politics since the nation's founding, with Congress originally holding the power to set trade policy. These debates often reflected deeper questions about the country's economic future. Over time, as trade became more complex and globalized, Congress delegated some authority to the president to respond quickly to economic threats and opportunities. This shift set the stage for a major clash between the White House and the judiciary, culminating in a Supreme Court decision that would redefine the balance of power in Washington and the future of American trade policy. The central question remains: how much power should the president really have over trade? The answer continues to shape the nation's economy and its role in the world. The recent tariff saga began when the Trump administration took a bold new approach to trade. Citing unfair practices by countries like China, President Trump imposed sweeping tariffs using emergency powers under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or IEEPA. This move bypassed Congress, allowing the White House to quickly tax hundreds of billions in imports. The administration argued these tariffs were vital to protect American jobs and industries, but critics saw it as a massive, executive overreach. IEEPA was originally meant for foreign policy crises, not for rewriting the nation's tariff system. The sudden tariffs hit a wide range of products, sparking outrage among businesses and igniting a legal battle that would reach the Supreme Court. For many companies, these tariffs weren't just policy, they were a direct threat to survival. The legal fight over tariffs was about more than economics. It was about the Constitution. Congress is supposed to control trade and taxes, but the administration argued that laws like EPA gave the president broad emergency powers. The government claimed that a chronic trade deficit was an extraordinary threat, justifying executive action. Opponents, including hundreds of businesses and states, argued that only Congress can impose new taxes, and that IEPA's vague language wasn't enough to hand over such sweeping authority. A federal appeals court sided with the challengers, ruling the president had overstepped. The case went to the Supreme Court, where justices questioned whether allowing such broad executive power would erase Congress's constitutional role in trade. The stakes: should a president be able to impose massive tariffs by simply declaring an economic emergency? The answer would reshape the balance of power in Washington. In a landmark 6-3 decision, the Supreme Court struck down the Trump-era tariffs, reining in presidential power. Chief Justice Roberts wrote that while presidents have emergency powers, imposing a sweeping tariff system is Congress's job, unless Congress clearly says otherwise. The court relied on the major questions doctrine, which requires clear congressional authorization for actions of vast economic significance. The justices found that IEEPA, designed for targeted sanctions, was never meant to justify a wholesale rewrite of trade policy. The majority warned that letting the executive impose taxes without Congress would upend the Constitution's balance of power. The dissent argued the court was overreaching, but the majority's view prevailed. The decision set a precedent: major economic shifts require explicit approval from Congress, not just creative use of old laws. This ruling will shape presidential power and trade policy for decades. The Supreme Court's decision sent shockwaves through the economy, upending years of established trade policy and leaving both government officials and business leaders scrambling to respond. With the tariffs ruled illegal, the U.S. Treasury may have to refund up to $1 trillion to importers, a massive financial challenge that could reshape the federal budget and force tough choices in Washington. For businesses like Greenbar Distillery and Deer Stags, these refunds could mean survival, allowing them to rehire workers, invest in growth, and finally recover from years of uncertainty and financial strain. But the refund process is daunting, with mountains of paperwork and unprecedented complexity. Many companies are unsure how to even begin, and some worry they'll miss out on relief due to bureaucratic hurdles. Customs brokers warn that processing claims for thousands of products per shipment could overwhelm both businesses and government agencies, leading to long delays and confusion as everyone tries to navigate the new rules. Beyond refunds, removing the tariffs is expected to lower prices for consumers and reduce costs for manufacturers, making everyday goods more affordable and helping companies stay competitive. Economists predict the average American family could save up to $1,000 a year, freeing up money for other essentials and boosting consumer confidence. Cheaper materials will help U.S. companies compete globally, potentially boosting growth and jobs, and encouraging new investment in American manufacturing. The ruling removes a major obstacle for many sectors, opening the door to renewed economic activity, expansion, and innovation across the country. But the transition won't be easy and the impact will ripple for years as businesses, families, and policymakers adjust to a new economic reality. The Supreme Court's ruling settled the law but not the politics. The debate over protectionism versus free trade is as old as America itself. Supporters say tariffs were needed to fight unfair foreign practices and save U.S. industries like steel and aluminum. For some workers and communities, tariffs were a lifeline, protecting jobs and reviving factories. Opponents argue tariffs were a hidden tax, raising costs for businesses and consumers, and making American products less competitive. Retaliatory tariffs from other countries hurt U.S. farmers and manufacturers, closing off key export markets. For critics, the policy did more harm than good, punishing Americans more than foreign competitors. The core question remains: how should America balance protecting its industries with the benefits of open trade? The Supreme Court's decision doesn't just end a set of tariffs, it fundamentally reshapes the direction of American trade policy for years to come. This landmark ruling marks a turning point, signaling a new era in how the United States approaches its economic relationships with the world. By limiting executive power, the court puts Congress back in charge of major trade decisions. This shift restores the constitutional balance between the branches of government, ensuring that no single leader can unilaterally impose sweeping trade measures. Future tariffs will now require open legislative debate and consensus, making policy more stable and transparent, but also potentially slower to adapt to sudden global changes. Lawmakers will need to weigh the interests of workers, businesses, and consumers in every decision. Globally, this signals a shift toward predictability and rules-based trade, easing tensions with U.S. partners. Allies and competitors alike will be watching closely as America redefines its role in the global marketplace. The end of the tariff war could reopen foreign markets for American farmers and manufacturers, boosting exports and creating new jobs at home. For many industries, this offers a chance to rebuild relationships and regain lost ground. But the ruling doesn't ban tariffs, it just clarifies that Congress must approve them. Tariffs remain a tool in the nation's economic arsenal, but now their use will be subject to greater scrutiny and public debate. The political fight over trade will now play out in Congress, with protectionists and free traders battling for influence. The stakes are high, and the debates will be fierce as lawmakers try to balance national interests with global realities. Crafting a balanced trade strategy will require compromise, vision, and a willingness to listen to diverse voices from across the country. Only through collaboration can Congress chart a path that benefits all Americans. The court has handed the keys back to Congress, now it's up to them to drive. Their leadership will determine whether America leads in global trade or falls behind. The future of American trade will depend on their choices, and the world will be watching every move they make. The Supreme Court's decision is about more than tariffs. It's about the rule of law and the separation of powers. By striking down the tariffs, the court reaffirmed that major policy decisions must be made by Congress, not by executive decree. This ruling restores stability and predictability for businesses and consumers, ensuring that trade rules can't change overnight. It's a reminder that taxes, on income or imports, require the consent of the people's representatives. The decision marks a turning point, preserving the constitutional balance envisioned by the framers. It's a lesson for future presidents and lawmakers. Power has limits, and responsibility can't be delegated away. The economic challenges and trade debates will continue, but the process will be more democratic and transparent. In the end, this case is a powerful reminder that American government is, and must remain, of, by, and for the people.